But let's move on here to CeeDee Lamb, who is another absolute steal, but another not so hot landing spot. I was floored when Dallas took CeeDee. They took him at the 117 spot in the draft. When I look at the Cowboys offense, I do think Dak can sustain a third wide receiver behind Amari Cooper and potentially fighting for targets with Michael Gallup, who we saw had a great breakout season last year. We have the Cobb targets vacated. We have the Jason Witten targets also vacated. Right there, that's 166. Looking at across the entire NFL, they're second, the Cowboys are, in most vacated targets. And we saw Dak Prescott hitting his stride in the passing game. He was fifth in pass attempts at 596. Amari Cooper, 118 targets. Gallup, 113 targets. Combo that in with the fact that Jason Garrett's gone, and now they bring in Fat Mike McCarthy, who we see rely on those three wide receiver sets pretty often. We saw high pass volumes with him in Green Bay. So if we assume there's going to be some similarities there and Mike hasn't gone all in on the new school analytics like he said he did, then I think we can bank on CeeDee Lamb having some fantasy viability in his first year in the NFL. So to me, CeeDee's a slight downgrade to Gallup. Alex, would you agree?
Yeah, I do. I still have Cooper as a low-end wide receiver 1. Gallup right now is a high-end wide receiver 3, where I have CeeDee Lamb as more of a mid to low-end wide receiver 3. I'll get into my takes here in a minute, but yeah, I think Lamb is just slightly under Gallup in terms of value for this season.
Yeah, it kind of pigeonholes Gallup into almost being more of a pure deep threat. We know that was part of his game, but it almost seems like now we're going to bring CeeDee Lamb in here to take on more of the underneath stuff. But just like you said, like Amari, he's still the alpha dog. He's on a huge contract. He's been the man since he got to Dallas in that trade. And while I don't comp the two skill sets, one similarity I do see between Lamb is like what Hollywood Brown was last year. Like you can take a shot on him early if you believe. He'll be difficult to predict based on matchup, but he'll inevitably have his games. In year one, I'm predicting somewhere around 75 targets. And for Dynasty, I absolutely love him as a guy who can surpass Michael Gallup as the 2. And maybe even if Jerry Jones wants to move on from Amari Cooper's massive deal, maybe in 2 or 3 years, maybe 3 or 4 years would be better there. But, I can see CeeDee kind of moving into that spot and developing him. So I love it. And we look at his college production. He had some of the best out of all the names taken in this first round of wide receivers. 14.3 yards per target, 4 yards per route run, 11.1 yards after the catch, which were number one across all the rookies in this class. So all three, here's one more, Alex, before I let you get into your takes. This blew my mind a little bit. All three 2019 Cowboys wide receivers were top 31 in fantasy points during the 13 full weeks that they played together. So I think there is sustainability that Dak Prescott can have. And now with Witten not taking up 83 targets and falling forward for 3 yards, I think CeeDee's going to get some definite usage in this Cowboys passing game.
That's a great call. I think I'm with you for the most part, but my first reaction, I got to say, Jerry Jones coming out hot, guns a-blazing, sitting in the yacht on draft day, just giving us some flexes left and right, saying, hey, look, CeeDee Lamb's on the board. I don't care if I don't need a wide receiver. I don't care if my defense is made of, like, foldable chairs. I'm going to go draft CeeDee Lamb because he's a shiny new toy. I am obsessed with Dak Prescott, and I want to make sure Dak comes back on a long-term deal. So, Jerry, we see you, and I think Cowboys fans – at first, I mean, Steph, we know a couple Cowboys fans, and it sounded like the sentiment at first was, why? But I think as the season gets closer, those Cowboys fans are going to continue to be excited for CeeDee Lamb. He was my number 1 receiver in this draft. He was a steal at 17 overall. No, the Cowboys didn't need him, but I mean, he's going to be fun in this offense. The biggest winner to me is Dak Prescott.
Yep.
I think Dak, right now he's my QB4. I do have Mahomes, Lamar, and Kyler in front of him. But I would not be surprised at all if he finishes in the top 3, maybe even the top 2. He finished at 2 last year. Maybe with these weapons, maybe with Mike McCarthy, this is a year where we can see Dak take an additional step forward as a quarterback. But to your point, I know there's the vacated targets in this offense, and that's the narrative everyone's taking with they can support 3 wide receivers. But to me, this will affect Amari Cooper and Michael Gallup. I do think they can sustain 3 receivers, but before I had Amari Cooper as a borderline top 8 guy, I was super high on Gallup. I had him locked into the top 20, maybe even creeping towards a high-end wide receiver 2. like I mentioned just a minute ago, Cooper is down a couple spots to a low-end wide receiver 1. Gallup is a high-end 3 for me. And Lamb himself is still a wide receiver 3. So I certainly think you will get value out of all 3 of these guys in 2020. But the big takeaway for Lamb, for me, he's my favorite rookie in redraft. And if something were to happen to Amari Cooper or Michael Gallup, I think Lamb would immediately be a top 20 wide receiver with even more upside than that. So I'm super excited about Lamb. I think he's going to continue to get involved as the season goes along. And this Cowboys offense is going to be fun. Just thinking about what happened in Tampa last year, Jameis Winston threw the ball, it seemed like a billion times because their defense couldn't stop anybody. Not only did the Cowboys retool on offense, but they let everyone on defense go, it seems like. So they could be giving up a ton of points, which in turn means they're going to have to be scoring a ton of points. So this is an offense that could be super high volume in 2020. And from a fantasy football perspective, that's the exact kind of offense that you want to invest in.